is Inside LAFC Podcast. Glad you could join us as we are emerging from the International Week and getting ready for the Conference Semifinals this weekend. LAFC looking to make even more history. I am Max Bretos, as always, joined by Steve Beitashour. What kept you occupied this weekend when you weren't allowed to watch copious amounts of MLS Cup playoffs?
I was bored. I was just stuck with the NFL. Yeah, I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like, come on.
Another 49ers masterclass?
Oh, and then that made it even worse. Oh, gosh. Thanks for reminding me. I thought I forgot about it. But, yeah, it was a little boring without my MLS playoffs.
Yes. I mean, they talk about the format, but maybe they talk about the format because they knew they were going to miss it and it was so good the weekend prior. But here we go. Do not fret. We will have MLS Cup playoffs, and for the Black and Gold Army, the family, a big game against the Sounders. It is the marquee matchup of the four because of the history and because of the quality of these two teams. We'll get into that preview. We will talk about that history. Also want to let you know, coming up later on Inside LAFC Podcast, we will be joined by the phenom himself, the LAFC midfielder who's just was that little missing jigsaw piece. He came in. Lewis O'Brien has made this team really, really purr. We will have a talk to him about how he is adjusting to life in MLS and the United States. According to things I have heard, it is going very, very well for Lewis. He loves it here. So we will let's talk about it. It is conference semifinal week. So, everything's starting to emerge now. People are going to promote the game. People are going to be excited. We'll be down there at the PC. The players have been training through. I know they trained through the weekend. They had a couple days off at the beginning of the week. Obviously, missing a few key players. We will talk about the International Week for all the LAFC players last week. Some really interesting, some positive stories for a lot of them. And we're waiting for them to come back. So we always hold our breath a little bit here, Beta, because the International Week is challenging. This is one of a kind for MLS that you got to wait, see these guys come back. They're healthy, and that you're going to have a day, maybe two at best, to train with them ahead of this Sounders game.
Yeah, it's a little tricky how you play it. Obviously, the guys who went on international break, they're playing in a competitive match. We talked about this last week. Hopefully everyone stays healthy. That's priority number one. But then you talk about the guys who are at training in LA right now. It's a weird one. It's how much do you taper off and kind of relax, get the bodies right? Because everyone's on a high from a big victory. It was an exciting just week of MLS action in the playoffs. So how do you go from that high and that buzz to, okay, we're just going to practice for an extended period of time, and then we have to ramp it up again to the playoffs, right? It's do or die. So it's always tricky for the people staying back, but I'm sure LAFC staff has a good competitive match, a little maybe inter squad game to kind of make sure their minutes and their workload is up. But yeah, the emotions, it's tough to deal with.
Yeah, and keep in mind, key players they're missing. We'll let you know how they fared. Denny Bouanga with Gabon, Matty Bogusz with Poland, who has been the playoff hero for LAFC up to this point, and Kike Oliveira with Uruguay. We'll talk about Nate Ordaz and Kai Kamara as well. Conference semifinal week. I wanted to get your thoughts on what LAFC was able to accomplish, as they are the first team to make the conference semifinals. They're the only team to make the conference semifinal in 3 straight years. So we have a 29-team league. That's pretty tricky. What is so impressive about that? Not only that, they'll be looking to make the conference finals for 3 straight years.
Yeah, you could throw that stat to a majority of the teams in MLS and just say playoffs. Just make the playoffs 3 straight years. And it's impressive, right? But talk about conference semis 3 years in a row. You have to tip your cap, and we've talked about this many times. It's the black and gold standard, right? They expect not just to make the playoffs, they expect to win. And they expect to win MLS Cup. That's their goal every year. And so you have to give the coaching staff, the front office, the players, you have to give the whole organization, LAFC, a ton of credit. They have a target on their back. Everyone knows they're coming, and still LAFC just handles business week in and week out. So it's something that they should be proud of. But again, it is the black and gold standard.
Inter Miami, the number one box office attraction in Major League Soccer, have made 0 conference semifinals in 3 years. Columbus, I think, have made 1. They are the champs. And LAFC, avoided the banana peel in the round one and are now still going. I think we have to give them a lot of credit because clearly this format does not allow teams to be successful year in, year out. I always bring up the Philadelphia Union, which was the best team in the East when LAFC won MLS Cup. I mean, they've fallen off the map just to show how LAFC maintain that standard. So it's great. And we get to do this podcast again every week as a result and talk about it.
Yeah. It goes for granted. Honestly, everyone wants to see the trophy, but you just have to think about the success LAFC has had. Like you talk about Philly, who lost 2 years ago to LAFC, going to the finals, and they're talking about being back and they're going to win it. And just last week they fired their coach. So it's difficult to do what LAFC does year after year just to be successful. So you have to tip your cap to them for sure. And hopefully they continue that trend.
And it's great for the league. And just to point out again, there's 4 semifinals. And remember, all the upsets happen in the East. Inter Miami, Columbus, Cincinnati knocked out. The Red Bulls New York City FC game is interesting. And you have Orlando and Atlanta. And then you have the Galaxy and Minnesota. But the matchup that the league is focusing on that's already been designated as the number one, which is going to be, you would hope for MLS as it tries to grow that would draw the neutrals in, is this one. And there's a lot on there. We're gonna break that down here. And I wanted to start with the history with the Sounders here, a history you've been part of. Let's go back to year one. I mean, these are big games. When they opened BMO Stadium and LAFC and the Simon goal to win that game. When in 2019, obviously a very painful one, the one that, it's all one-way traffic for LAFC for now. We'll see. We hopefully keep it going. But in 2019, the biggest game in LAFC's history, the Sounders beat them, ending that historic run of which you were part of, Steve Beitashour. And then they also played last year in the playoffs. But let's go back to when you were there. I mean, this was you looked at important games in LA, and this is another one here, and it was the Sounders.
Yeah, there have been some incredible matchups in a short amount of history with LAFC in Seattle, and it's one of those competitive. It came about organically, right? This rivalry, and I was part of it. The first game in Seattle had just gone to the finals in 2017 against TFC, and now I'm with LAFC, our first game.
The first game ever. I forgot that one.
First game ever. We don't know what to expect, really. I think that preseason we tied every single game, so we don't know what to expect. And we go up there and hand them a 1-0 loss for them, and we were pumped. And then another memorable matchup was the home opener for, at the time, Baker, California, now BMO. What's going to happen? Our first game at home, we're pumped up. First time playing in front of the 32-52 at home. It was exciting. Guys were, everyone had a little buzz to them. The stadium was rocking. It was unbelievable. And then Simon, 93rd minute, I think, 94th minute, hits that free kick to win it 1-0. So super, super high in emotions and just everyone's buzzing. And then you mentioned the not so fun moment in 2019 when we took that defeat in the playoffs, the conference finals to Seattle. So it's this rivalry that's just kind of organically, it's been brewing and built, and it's beautiful, right? The league loves it. I think the fans love it. It's must-watch TV. Anybody, any neutral or any fan of another team, if your team is not playing, you're watching this matchup. So it's good. I'm excited. To watch. I can't wait for it to be here. So I am expecting a good game, but a good game for LAFC nonetheless.
As a rivalry goes, I mean, because I think we always, obviously it's the Galaxy. I think we put the Portland Timbers number 2 because of what happened early on. It should probably, and maybe it should be the Whitecaps because we play them so often. But I mean, maybe it should be the Sounders. And I know, I mean, this is a big deal for here and how angry the LAFC fan base, but now that Sounders fan base have to look at LAFC as their bogey team. Like, we gotta get over it. I get the feeling that up there, I mean, they are really the supporters for the Sounders, the team are, I mean, they're ramped up down here for this one. They're excited. They got to be pumped up for it as well up there.
Well, you're right. And that's because they're also a very good club and organization where they expect to win, right? If you look at from when they joined the league, I think it was 2009, if I'm not mistaken. They have been to the playoffs almost every single year. They have a few championships. Like, they have a lot to be proud of. They have some Open Cups. So anytime you have two clubs that are constantly competing for trophies, they're naturally going to just build that rivalry. I know you mentioned Portland for sure. That naturally came about. Galaxy just because of the close proximity. But I definitely throw Seattle up there in the top three with LAFC, just because you have two quality clubs, two organizations that they don't just try to make playoffs. They want to win MLS Cup. So again, they're definitely not happy with LAFC right now as of late, with the way the results have been going.
Let us talk about that, because it's a result of how successful these two teams are. And I think your point about how the Sounders were the successful team and a team to emulate, a team to look at and say, we want to do what they do, is very healthy for LAFC, because the Sounders, you said, came in, won Open Cup, then they got a couple MLS Cups. They're going to the Club World Cup. They won the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So I mean, they are winning trophies. I mean, it's to me a comfort to have a team like the Sounders, because it's a target and it's an example. So very good. But we're going to talk about the history here, and because these two teams have been so well, they met in two MLS games. Then they met in the League's Cup quarters, and then they met in the U.S. Open Cup semis. So not only are they good, but they meet deep into these tournaments. So I want to go through all four of them and see if we can get some themes here about these two. So it was the season opener, February 24th, LAFC 2, Seattle 1. Tons of shots here. LAFC had 17, Seattle 16. Both had 7 on target. July 20th, in Seattle, LAFC won 3-0. Denny Bouanga, 2 goals. Bogusz 1. Seattle had 66% of the ball, 21 shots. LAFC had 7 shots, 5 on target, had 3 goals. So a weird game, weird stat line. August 17th, League Cup quarters, LAFC up in Seattle. That was a crazy one. They just got on top, and it were easy. 3-0, 64% possession for Seattle. Obviously, they were chasing that game, and they got 16 shots. LAFC could defend a little bit, but they were dominant. And then 11 days later, August 28th, U.S. Open Cup, LAFC wins it with the Denny Bouanga penalty in the 83rd. That was very close at Starfire. On that day, LAFC actually had most of the possession at 57%. So the League's Cup quarters and the MLS game in Seattle, LAFC comfortable wins. The season opener, I thought LAFC deserved winners, but it was a little close. They were up 2-0 most of the game, and it ended up 2-1. And then the win at Starfire, which was, to me, a coin flip. But all 4 wins for LAFC. I know we talked about it. Would you want to be in a position where you are confident? And I know the Sounders, it's got to be in their head. But what's also in their head is like, we can't lose this game. There's no way, but there is a way. And LAFC have the blueprint.
They do have the blueprint. And it's funny, you mentioned all those games, and I'm thinking back. I'm like, yeah, I remember they had a lot of possession, but it never felt dangerous. The most important stat line, well, 2 most important, are obviously the XG, or expected goals, and then the goals, right? LAFC just has a way of scoring those goals. When you have a player like Bouanga and Bogusz, who you mentioned on that stat line, you tend to put the ball in the back of the net more often than not. And I think Seattle was missing that in the earlier games, in those past 4 games. But the part that really sticks out is, again, yes, the regular season games apart, but those are 2 trophies on the line. I think that's what bugs Seattle more than, we lost the last 4 to LAFC. I think the fact that they had 2 opportunities pretty deep into the playoffs for both of those, one of them was to go into the finals. I think that one really upsets them. And now here's another chance for them. Okay, deepish into the playoffs. Here's our chance to get them. But it's in the back of the mind. I'm telling you right now, as a former player, you're like, if we go down early, you're just thinking, oh, here it goes again. These guys are about to beat us again. So they want a fast start like no one else does. But if they don't get it, I think you can see the white flag. Like, oh, guys are throwing it in.
Well, LAFC have scored the first goal in every game. So that's obviously something that they would like to duplicate here. And I thought the Open Cup one was interesting because at the time, LAFC, remember the pressure that LAFC had? They
Mhm.
lost the Leagues Cup. They go, hey, they're not winning these finals. And we're like, they got to win this.
Yeah.
And there was no doubt. There was a ton of pressure on LAFC that day. And they played very well with it. And I thought you look at that game, that really was the stimulus to the form that LAFC found in September, October, and now November.
Yeah. I remember after that game, they went on a serious run, LAFC did. So, again, you talked about pressure, right? There was pressure going into that game. People were chirping a little bit. Oh, are they going to win a trophy? They just lost this chance at a different trophy, and so there was pressure on that game, and that kind of catapulted them into the form, like you mentioned, that they are right now, continuing into the playoffs. So they have to continue that trend with this game and on.
I'm looking at that August 28th game. I believe that was the last time the Sounders lost a game. So it's just weird because we think LAFC are dominant in this, but against the rest of MLS, the Sounders are close to unstoppable. They lost August 31st to Portland. That's the last time they lost a game. So we're looking at 9 games, including looking really good in the playoffs.
Wow.
It's just a weird circumstance. Do you think maybe deep down both these teams would have preferred another opponent?
I think so.
Both, right?
Absolutely. But that's just how it works. And again, you have to look at their side as well. You talk about their form and how well they're playing right now. Stephen Fry, who robbed me of an MLS Cup final in 2016,
Still
stings absolutely, and he's performing very well for them. So he might be another person to watch and keep an eye out for when LAFC plays in a few days. Because if he has a big game like he did against, my 2016 TFC squad, he can single-handedly keep that team in it. So he's in great form right now, and he just has this calmness and this class about him that he's one that I tend to worry about, because you could dominate, but he just makes some ridiculous saves sometimes.
Stephen Fry leads MLS in clean sheets, and Hugo Lloris is second. Sounders, I don't think maybe allowed 1 goal in there. They've been defensively solid, but so is LAFC. As we move to the keys to this match, and I think the keys to the match versus Seattle, we talked about scoring first. I will bet my mortgage whoever scores first is probably going to win this game. If somebody scores first, and I'm not a gambling man, I'm not betting anything, but if there's also a chance. Remember, this is the conference semis, so if it's tied after 90 minutes, we go to extra time. We could be in minute 115, and it could be scoreless. Because I think these two teams defensively are going to be locked in, and there's also going to be, remember, LAFC. By the way, Seattle, I don't think lost maybe 1 or 2 players to international duty. Knew who, maybe. I have to double check, but it's not like what LAFC are missing. So maybe those offensive players may not be as sharp. So there's a lot of that in there. So you lean into your defensive side. So where do you think this game could be won or lost on Saturday night?
I tend to agree with you. It's going to be a little bit of a tighter game. For sure, whoever scores first, I think they win. But I think both sides are going to be a little bit more conservative, not so crazy on the attack. Okay, let's make sure we always have the 4 back, whether one outside back shifts and having that holding mid. Just make sure you always have that 4 back cover and minimize risk. It's the playoffs. You can't. It kind of stinks to say this, but it's survival, right? It's survival. You just
it won't be pretty, perhaps.
You can't make mistakes. It doesn't have to be pretty. You don't have to go score 3-4 goals. One goal is enough. You get the clean sheet, and that's usually the message when you get into the playoffs, right? It's keep the clean sheet. That's priority number 1. And then if we can get one, fantastic, just lock it down. So I don't expect either team to score 1 and continue to keep the pedal to the metal and keep going full throttle. No, it's going to be, okay, let's go maybe into a back 5 and just see this game out. So a little bit of survival. I know it stinks, but it's the playoffs.
I tend to think Steve Trinolo may it depends. Does he want 3-man midfield? We've talked about the formation. Does he go to the 3 center backs? I think that's a very legit possibility with those wing backs kind of defending there. Seattle are I think 3rd or 4th in possession. We know LAFC doesn't want to have too much of the ball. I wonder if Seattle wants a lot of the ball here. I wonder if they're going to go we're not going to get caught. I
Yeah.
mean, the risk of a counter, because LAFC is going to be like, we're going to get you. Come on.
Yeah.
I wonder if they just go a couple times and go, well, we'll sit this one out.
LAFC is very comfortable playing in that counterattacking form or formation. They're okay. You can have the ball. You're right. Seattle does enjoy the ball, but I can't imagine where Seattle is just like lumping it. No, you have it. And LAFC's, no, you. Can you imagine? Both teams.
I can imagine.
Like, no, you have it. So I think Seattle enjoys the ball more right now, it looks like, than LAFC does. I think they're a little more comfortable with it. So I could see Seattle trying to control the rhythm of the game and play at their tempo. Because for me, if you go into a back and forth, that's where LAFC will thrive a little bit. They just have so much speed, and their front three is it's scary, right? And so I don't think Seattle wants any part of that. But that would be funny if we got a little bit. No, you have it. No, you have the ball.
I saw it famously in the World Cup semifinals. So it was France and Morocco. Morocco says, we're not touching the ball. We're going to sit here. And then France was like, we're not touching the ball. And I was like, what's going on in this game? And then finally Morocco said, we're going to take the ball. And they got caught. So it's a little game.
Yeah. The game within the game.
But I think, I think that's a key too, is if LAFC sees Seattle not being themselves, I think that could be a big window. And I think that's a possibility here because the Sounders, they've got to, it's got to be all in their head with this. And I know, I can't even imagine. It's like, how do we beat these guys? Yeah. And that can be a positive or it could be a negative. And I think LAFC is going to be pretty geared. Anyone to keep an eye on? I would love to throw Matty Bogusz in here again because I think he just there's something about what he's going to do. But I would tend to think the goalkeepers might be a good one to remind everyone about.
That's a good shout. I think the goalies are going to be making a few saves, but I also do think their back line is going to protect them. I don't think it's going to be any breakaway saves. It's just going to be routine, but possibly a lot of shots just on the perimeter of the 18-yard box. So they'll be on their toes. I'm excited. I'm like pumped up just talking about
the game, man.
The mind games before the game even started. Like, what are they going to do? What's Steve Cherundolo going to do? Is he going to come out in a 3-4-3, 4-3-3, 3-5-2? What's he going to do? And then vice versa. What is Seattle going to do? So I'm excited.
I don't know what to guess. I think it'll be the 3-4-3. I think it'll be the 3-4-3.
At home, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll see.
We'll see. With the chance to change things up at halftime. So be very excited. Saturday night, BMO Stadium. Get your tickets. Go to LAFC.com if you haven't, available on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Make sure you tune in. This is what the league is all about. These matchups with so much at stake and making new history. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully it keeps going for LAFC. Because remember, they now have home field advantage through MLS Cup. They keep winning. Every game will be at BMO Stadium. So they have an opportunity, a gift. We'll see if they can see it all the way through. And they would be a team to make 3 straight MLS Cups, which is really unheard of. It's happened, but unheard of. Do want to give everyone an update on the guys that were off on international duty. So we had the 5 players and some really nice stories. I want to say Denny Bouanga. He scored against Morocco, but Morocco scored 5 unanswered. However, in the next game, I think in the Central African Republic, they won, which means Gabon is going to the African Cup of Nations. So a great moment for him. Kai Kamara, they tied Chad, and that took them out of the running. So Sierra Leone will not qualify. But it was a nice story that he went out there and was able to do it. Christian Oliveira did not play. We're recording this before their second World Cup qualifier against Brazil, but he didn't play the game against Colombia, but Uruguay won it. So Christian's closer to qualifying for the World Cup. Uruguay is going to get there. And Matty Bogusz, Poland got beat up pretty bad in 2 games, but he started against Portugal, and the ratings were that he did okay. The fact that he's starting for Poland, great news. And finally, Nate Ordaz started both games for El Salvador. So what is this like? You bring it back. Obviously, you're coming to the playoffs, but all things considered, really good news for the group. Obviously, Kai's not going to get the win, and we'll see if Christian plays, but the coach likes him. But this is all good collectively for the team.
It's great for the players. It's great for the team, the organization. Everyone's happy. And the number one thing we talked about before they all left was stay healthy. Like, you all stayed healthy. wonderful. Some good results. You got minutes, competitive matches. Those guys are coming back flying, right? Those competitive juices were still going away on their international break. They can't wait to get back and continue the playoffs. Again, I talked about it earlier. The guys who stuck around, that's what's difficult, right? You're just practicing and trying to stay healthy and fit for the next round of playoffs, which seems like an eternity when you have this break. I've been part of it. It's not fun. So for those guys that, left, it's great for them individually to represent your country. It's such an honor. But now coming back into, the conference semis against a good Seattle team. So they're definitely pumped.
And all the second games were done early. So Denny and Maddie and Nate already on their way back. They'll have a day, but they should be able to get at least Thursday, Friday training in, I think.
Yeah.
Christian will be a little different. The game's on a Tuesday, so he'll probably maybe get a game Friday. But I think the key guys here are Denny and Maddie. Christian didn't start, but those are the guys are going to have to start and be somewhat fresh. And get an extra day to get over the jet lag, etc.
Yeah.
How are you with jet lag?
Look, I was going to say, I don't know how far their flights are.
Pretty far.
I was going to Iran, which is like a 17-hour flight. You have a layover in Istanbul or somewhere. It was rough. Thankfully they fly you first class, so you're able to sleep. But still, when you're just sitting on a plane for that long and, that many hours ahead and the whole time change, it took me a few days to get back. So I don't know. Theirs can't be that bad. I don't know where they went, but
Danny was in the African continent, and Maddie was in Poland, so it's not short.
Right. It's not short. All right, yeah. So.
And Christian's in Brazil, which is actually not bad. It could be worse. You could be in Uruguay. So you can come back. So
yeah. All right, but not terrible.
No.
Yeah.
You don't sleep in first class. You stay up and watch movies and eat nonstop. That's what you do in first class.
The first time I did, I was like, "This is so cool! Like, this is amazing." And then the second time, I'm like, "I'm going to."
You're supposed to look back. What else you got back there? Yeah, bring it out.
Yeah,
bring out the cart. Bring out the food cart.
Well, the first time I enjoyed it for sure. I will say that. But after that, you're like, "All right, let me get my sleep."
Yes. He likes to get his rest. It's Steve Beitashour. He is first class through and through on a plane or on the podcast. Inside LAFC podcast. Get ready, folks. This is a huge event. We never know how it's going to be for LAFC in the future, but they are the black and gold standard, and we get to enjoy these. So enjoy it again, and hopefully there is more. We will be back after this quick break to talk with LAFC midfielder Lewis O'Brien. This is Inside LAFC podcast.
Inside LAFC podcast is presented by Freeway Insurance, driving savings.
Welcome back to Inside LAFC podcast, joined by a gentleman who's becoming a fan favorite, no doubt about it, Lewis O'Brien, LAFC midfielder. And Lewis, we'll talk about the playoffs and the Sounders, but you arrived to the club. Yeah. Normally it takes a while to assimilate, but you got right into the lineup. Why do you think that? How did you set yourself up to make that transition so effective for you?
I think it was just the work that I'd done before I'd obviously came over. I was kind of in my pre-season back in England, so it was kind of a transition that was easy to make because I was kind of gearing up to be able to play my first games in that season, and then obviously came to the end of my pre-season in England, and it just so happened to turn out it was when I came here, so I was kind of more or less nearly ready to step in if I needed to straight away.
You would have the profile of a player that LAFC needed to allow the success to come about here in the back end of the season. What were those conversations like with the coaches about what you could bring to the table, and what did you know about what you had that allowed this to be so effective?
Yeah, when I came, I got to watch a couple games from the stands, and it was nice to see because it was one of them things where you watch from the sides and you think, oh yeah, maybe I can fit in here and do things a little bit different than what's already there. But I got told we played 4-3-3, so I was kind of excited to play in the 8. But obviously since then it doesn't work out as well as it is. So we've been playing a 2 in the middle, but sometimes you've got to adjust to that and add some more strings to your bow, which makes it better.
But what are those adjustments like? Because I mean, we talk about that a lot. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast where you guys have the 3-4-3 with the wing backs, and then you have you can shift to a 4-3-3, and I imagine that's still in the cards perhaps at some point in the playoffs. What are the challenges, or what are the things that are on your checklist when you're a two-man midfield and may go to a 3 or 3 back to a 2 to make it as seamless as possible?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be more disciplined when you play as a 2. You can't leave the middle as much as you can when you're in a 3. It's quite disciplined to keep the defensive side as well as the attacking side. You've got to play a lot through the back, like from the centre backs up to the forwards. Whereas when you play a 3, you can roam a little bit more because you've always got that protection of the extra man. But it's one of them things that I think as a midfielder, as any midfielder that plays, we can all do, interchange from one formation to another, as you've seen throughout this season.
And covering ground, you feel good about that is one of those two, because obviously the coaches and feel that way, and the team success would suggest that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the better aspects of my game, the engine that I have to be able to play the 90 minutes to my highest potential all the time. So it's just one of them things that I've seemed to have in my game since I was young, and hopefully can still have it throughout my whole time.
How's the relationship with Timothy? Because generally that would be your battery mate there in the midfield. How's that come along in the couple months you have been here?
Yeah, I mean, I get along with everyone so well, Ilie, Edu, Timmy, but sometimes when you get to play with these people more often, you kind of get that bond a lot quicker, and we do stuff outside of the training ground as well, which obviously helps that bond on and off the field. And yeah, I think throughout the games, you've seen that we've become more adaptive with each other, and we kind of understand how each other play, and it's the little things, the tiny things that can help every week.
I've seen all the players come in here, and adapting to LA is difficult. Everyone seems to get it, but Lewis, to me, it seems like you got it right away. What is it about this fair city that you feel so comfortable? You not only feel comfortable, but immediately.
I think it's the sun. I've got to be honest. I mean, my skin doesn't take well. My skin doesn't take well to the sun, but it makes you a lot happier. And at home, I think it's snowing, and it's in the minus degrees right now at home. But yeah, I mean, I just like to try and dive headfirst into anything as quick as possible, and try and get myself as comfortable as I can, as quick as I can. And I think that's what I tried to do here. I tried to embrace the culture, embrace the team, embrace the fans, and the quicker you can do that, the better you can show how you can play on the field.
Interesting choice of words with diving head first, because that's what you did at the Open Cup celebrations.
Yeah, the ground at home's a bit more wet, so yeah, it's one of them. It's one of the things.
That seemed like that was your idea from the jump. You're like, all right, let's clear some space. I'm going across the locker room.
I mean, it's the first trophy I've won in my career, so sometimes you've got to celebrate it properly. And it was just one of them things that came in my head, and luckily the cameras were filming it. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it seemed to go down quite well. Yeah.
Why didn't we know that? First trophy in your career.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when you're a schoolboy and all that, you probably
professional career. That's my first trophy. Yeah. So you've got to celebrate them properly, and hopefully, while I'm here, there's many more to come.
You do have to celebrate them properly. Just getting back to adjusting to LA, I saw you at the Clippers game. What have you checked off on your LA checklist of things that you want to experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've done as much as I can recently. I kind of like to stay at home a lot when after training and stuff, but with LA having so much to do and the city being so busy, there's always something to do. I've been to the Clippers quite a lot. I enjoy going to the games. I enjoy watching them. You don't get basketball back home. And I'm going to try and tick off an NFL game while I'm here before the end of the season. So hopefully that's another thing I can do.
All right, well, chop. The season's starting to wrap up here. You mentioned it. Forgive me if I'm paraphrasing, but you said it's all about the playoffs, and you got really hyped up to get the team hyped up. You haven't really experienced that. You had the promotion playoffs, but this is obviously different. What is it about that it's such a draw, certainly from someone who's come from a different footballing world, to have this league where you have these playoffs to determine the champion at the end?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a different format. I'm still not sure it should be called the playoffs because there's that many games. I mean, at home you play one game and you're done. It's you play one team and then you win that. You play the final and then that's finished. But we've had quite a long break between the games after playing 3 games in the first round, which to me is quite strange. It's one of them things where, especially no extra time, straight to penalties. It's a strange format. The 2 weeks has seemed long, very long, and I think we've all got to this block before the next game, and we're all very excited to get going and show what we've been working on these last 2 weeks.
It's a unique circumstance, no doubt about it. What have you done to prepare for that break so that you can? I mean, it's a big ask to turn it back on again for such a huge game up this weekend.
I think you've got to take the rest when you're allowed it. You've got to take it properly, but when you're in, you've got to work at that 110%. I think we've seen in training that the intensity level's gone up. I think everybody knows the type of game that it's going to be and where we are in this season now, and I don't think anyone wants to go home yet. So it's definitely increased.
What do we know about the Sounders? This is a team that LAFC's played a lot. You in particular, not as much because you came on the back end.
Yeah.
But this is a club that is one of the most successful in MLS history. They obviously have they have a bone to pick. They obviously want to get here, but LAFC has the advantage of knowing how to beat this team. How do you prepare for such a unique matchup?
Yeah, I mean, they're quite similar to Vancouver in the way that they play. They're quite aggressive and they like to play on the counter attack when they can. But it's just one of them things where I think if we focus on our game and we play the way that we know we can, it should hopefully go the way that we want it to go.
Brilliant. Well, Lewis, it's been a delight to watch this season, and we look forward to seeing you in the conference semifinals. And we're going to be along the ride to see if you can get that number 2 trophy very quickly.
Thank you.
We got to fill that case up. The Lewis Open.
Yeah. It's a bit empty at the moment. I might need to put some shelves up soon. Hopefully I can put some more up.
Good man. We look forward to more celebrations as well. One step at a time. Lewis O'Brien joining us here. Thanks again, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Joining us here on Inside LAFC Podcast. We'll be back with more recapping Seattle Sounders, hopefully with another game to look forward to after that. Make sure you rate, review, download, subscribe, tell a friend. We'll see you next time here on Inside LAFC.